Welcome to Complex Caning Piece by Piece. I hope you enjoy this today. I've really put a lot of thought into what to cut out and what to leave in. And I've put this list here for you if you want to pause on it. But we'll talk more about color later. Right now I want to show you what I prepared. I always make sheets of all my colors. This is a mix, and so is that purple, and so is the fuchsia. The blue is also mixed with a little bit of black to create more of a navy. It's just ultramarine blue when I started, like this. But those little nuances are really not, the key to caning. I just had some colors in mind and I wanted to do them. But I'll tell you, the most important thing that you can have on hand are plenty of sheets of clay. These are all in a number 1, and I've cut them out just to be neat for now. Number 1 is the thickest on my machine. Got those little pieces left over, and I made a little triangular fill there, just kind of in preparation, but you don't have to do that. The white is on a number 6 and a number 5. That's the thickest I'm going to use is a 5. A 6 is the thinnest I'm going to use because it's just too hard to work with it otherwise. So we're going to just kick into a blend right away, and I'm going to make a Skinner blend 2-part. And I'm sure you make these all the time. This pearl kind of acts a little bit differently than some clays. It's a very subtle mix, and you'll see that in the completed cane. So, you can gauge how much you want in there and then cut off parts. When I first started making blends, I always thought they had to be a certain way. They had to be a certain size. You can curve pieces to add more. You can do a lot with blends, and you're going to want to look into that. But this is a very simple one. And I'm just going to reduce that white a little bit on that side, because when I get finished, I want it to be mostly blue. Just kind of a highlight of white. So I always roll them out pretty much like this. That's the number 1. 2 layers of it. It'll give me a good amount because I'm going to be cutting it in half once it's jelly rolled. I'm going to take my roller and just knit it together a little bit so that I can pick it up more easily with my blade. I'm not going to put it in this direction. That's just a comfortable way for me to make it. It's a little under 5 inches wide, and that works for me because I've got a clay machine that's about 5.5 inches wide. I'm going to put it in that direction. So I've got my blend. It looks fine. You stop whenever you're happy. I like it like this. Cut off the shaggy ends for this cane, because this cane's kind of all about precision. And it's still not perfect. I don't think any cane can be perfect. But when you're starting with straight lines, you're more likely to end up with straight lines. So the sheet goes down like that. It's going to make a strip, and we're going to put it together. Just roll it up. You can go with either end on the outside of your jelly roll. Some people like the dark part, and some people really want to put the light part on the outside. This one's going to have the light part on the inside, and you'll see why when we cut it. This is the way it's going to end up. But those decisions are how you start enjoying your cane. How it's going to end up, how you're going to roll it. Maybe you would cut that strip right down the middle and make one of each. You want to really enjoy the choices. So we're going to roll this up. We've got a tight roll on one end. I'm going to really make sure that there's no hole there. And I'm going to roll it while tucking in the ends. And you don't do that with every kind of rolled cane, but you do with this kind. And I make a bevel cut before I seal it up. I'll turn that around. Sometimes I forget to work upside down toward the camera. Okay, and so I've got a bevel cut. And when I close it up that way, there's not a line where it stops. Now some people like that line in their design. I think it looks really cool sometimes. So, these aren't rules or anything. This is just one way to make your jelly roll. I'm going to reduce it quickly just by making a waist, pulling outward. I don't have to use caps or anything on a, just a simple Skinner blend like this because it's nice and fresh. It's not going to suck in. It doesn't have 3-4 kinds of clay in it. It's just a nice, easy peasy jelly roll. So you'll see the mat that I'm working on there. Those are 1-inch increments. It's just so nice to have them there. I don't have to stop and measure very often. I'm going to go right down the middle. I'm just going to start working with 1/2 of this cane. Very simple, very subtle. There's not too much to it. But we're going to make it interesting by the way we cut it, the way we put it back together. So this white wrap is that 6 I was telling you about, and it's just stinky to work with. I mean, nobody likes it. White is sticky, wants to bubble, bite you back a little bit. So, you rub your bubbles out toward the edges. You get a really stubborn one, you can poke it with a pin. I like to use a fine needle type tool. Nothing too, large in diameter to leave a hole. But anyway, you close it up. And we can leave that line visible because we're going to use that line for our own purposes. It doesn't have to be smoothed out completely or anything. So you can see I've got it back, between those 3 inches so that I can see where I'm cutting. And I'm still using that, quilting paper, quilters, I don't know what that thing is, a quilter's graph paper, I guess, underneath my glass just to kind of show me where I'm going. These are going to go back to back. They're going to create an area that's going to need fill. So anytime you're trying to preserve, any kind of shape, you got to put something in it to fill it. Otherwise, it's just going to mash together. And I'm going to make some fill really easily with these colors. I've got a little bit of my pearl, Sculpey pearl, and I'm just making a rolled up, I guess jelly roll, bullseye actually. I guess it would be a bullseye, but anyway, you'll see when it's done that it's really just a nice blended blue strip, one color, with a piece of white pearl in the center. And I think you'd be surprised how those little accents all over the place are really what people end up liking. And that's plenty big enough. I'll use that blue for something else. You'll see it later. But, that's plenty because you figure I'm just going to make some fill for a couple sides of that turquoise jelly roll, right? You see on this case I didn't tuck the ends in because that would make a lot of weird looking waste at the ends, and I want it to just be clean, and all I want to do is have a dot. So it's got a dot, and I'm going to reduce it and make it fit in there. It's going to need to be triangular, so I'll take my little log or snake and pinch it at the top. And you'll be making a million of these. When you cane, you're always making these. And they can be blended. They will be later. They can be wrapped in something. So let's say that had just a little navy blue shell around it. That would really change its character. These are the things you want to think about and do and take your time. I always work a little bit more quickly on video than I do in real life because I'm just deadly slow, and I think people just, want to go kill themselves. It's just so boring. And so I kind of go a little bit faster, but you just take your time. I'm going to take my triangle, I'm going to pop it in there. It's just going to make an interesting little thing. I don't even, I make these sometimes. Other people probably do too. It doesn't have a name that I know of. Then I'm going to create a couple of those out of the material I've got right there. And then I just want to take them and stack them up. And as you see in the finished cane, it's just a little element. It's just something for your eye to look at. It's got some detail to it without much work, really. So I've still got channels that need to be filled because, those shapes aren't going to keep themselves, right? And so, you saw my little piece of pearl I had ready from before. Well, that was for this. And now that I have this made, I can kind of get an idea what kind of size I want on it. Take it down a little bit to fit in there. I wanted to make sure that these colors were one of my focals. And we're going to use all the colors I think you really like that. While I was building this, I had seen it in my mind a couple times as I had had a dream about it. But as I built it and it started to come to life, I thought, this was a little more colorful, in the dream. I mean, it had a little bit more variety and stuff. So you'll see as we go, we can add whatever we want whenever we want. Because as the clay is not the boss of us. We're the boss of the clay. So I'm putting that together, and it's starting to be more cohesive. I'm going to give it a little warmth of my hands. I'm saving my scrap for later on. We're going to do something really cool with it. But I'm going to take that and kind of get it melded together a little bit better. We don't have to do a lot with it right now. We just have to make sure that it's settling into the shape and size that we want it to be. So we push it together, and we're starting to think right now about lines. The lines that you see there need to stay there, and they need to be straight. And if I chose to bend them, chose to put a great big groove into it or something, that would have to be straight, because that's what makes the symmetry of your cane no matter what. Okay, so no matter what kind of cane you're building, you have to just really commit to the lines, because the more we cut that, and the more we spread it around, and the more we kaleidoscope it, the more it will become apparent if there's areas of it that are narrow or squished in or compromised in some other way. So actually, caning wise, I don't think there's anything else to really worry about except keeping your lines straight and keeping your areas filled to maintain shape. So line and fill, I've been talking about that since my first video. So there's that. We're going to set that aside and go to this. I've got my nice big piece of Sculpey pearl. It's Premo Accents pearl, actually. And I'm going to make a stripe stack. It doesn't need to be this big, but we're going to make a stripe stack. And whenever I make them, I don't like to make them symmetrical with regard to the thickness of the lines. Of course, we got to keep them, tight. We got to keep them cohesive. But we don't have to make every line the same thickness, because to me that kind of just gets dull and it takes away some of the, motion of it. So I'm using number 5 white, I'm using a number 3 blue, and I'm using a number 1 sheet of pearl. And I laid them out like this, just so they won't just be fighting me back constantly, and I wouldn't have to cut them all to size and make them match. So I can still take it now. I can cut it this way. Okay, hasn't hurt anything, and it's a lot easier. This piece needs to come up. It's not going to stay here. And this is a bunch of stripe, and you'll be seeing that. We'll be using this stripe for 2 completely different things. I flipped it over and putting some more of that number 5 white on that side. That's the thicker of the 2 whites, So now it's got the 2 sides. So when I stack it, the stripes will come out right. We trim that up. I'm going to lay it out here so I can get a good look at it on the glass and make my cuts. I need a certain width. I need it to be, you'll see what width in here, because I'm going to have another piece that I'm going to save. The little piece on the right, okay, we're saving, and this piece we're going to cut and stack. And I'm just going to go 3 high on this. That's all I'm going to need. And save the rest for other stuff. They make really pretty, pinwheels and stuff like that. That other big piece is going to make a key element in our cane a little bit later on. So now I've got this. And when I get it bent into a new shape, we'll be able to see the bow shape that it ends up being. There's my square bender. I'm going to take a corner of it and I'm going to sink it in the center. Now the reason I made these clear is for this reason here, is that it's really hard to line them up when you can't see through them. I used to use wood dowels and they've got, they're alright. But I use these now so I can see where the center is and I can get a really crisp V shape. Or, if it's a round one, a really crisp half round shape. I'm going to take some just regular blue fill. That's a triangle like we made before with the white and with the other blue. And I'm going to put that in that V shape. And so really we're just altering stripes so that they're not just ordinary stripes anymore. And that stack's going to do a lot of good for us in our design and really give it a lot of style. That little piece of blue in there is really key to the design too. And once that's settled down, my lines are straight, I like it, the size is right, I'm going to go to the next one. That's purple. In person it's just this really vibrant purple. In the video I see that when the light changes it can look kind of blue. Anyway, I'm going to make a fan fold with this one. And you see that I didn't need as much white in this one as I did purple. And that's kind of like the blue one was the same way. We're altering the amount of color that we need for, the design we're trying to make. So we got these two, and the purple and white, will be the third one. Any of these canes, believe me, you could stop after this one and start putting it together and force it into a triangle and cut it and make a gorgeous kaleidoscope. Okay, so never feel like, oh my God, if she makes one more cane, I'm going to have her put to death. You just make what you want to make. But if you watch the video through, you'll see a bunch of things that you can make and see how easy they are. And then you'll have just more tools in your toolbox for, for your own designs, things you want to make. So I usually just take a cane bender that's kind of smallish, like this one, a little 1/4 inch guy. And just make it long enough that way, because I didn't really want to cut any of that off. You could if you want to. This one I forced into a triangle, letting it buckle right down the center to make kind of a weird little mountain peaky thing, and you'll see it in a minute. I'm sorry I cut that part out. I don't know why, but I did. But anyway, I made it into a triangle, and now I have the pieces that are all the same size, and I'll start thinking about how I'm going to put them together. We have a couple more things to make in order to kind of bring the colors together. So you see we have a very sad shortfall of that gorgeous magenta. And I'd like to see a little more turquoise too, because the one that we have is kind of watered down, over there. So I'm going to make a nice blend that's a 3-part blend. And I want you to take note of the extreme sloppiness of this process, because honestly you don't have to worry about this a lot. I've seen all these diagrams of these people's blends, and I don't know what I would do if I had to work like that. Just put some together, it's going to look fine. The only thing that can ever go wrong is, let's say if I had a red and green in here and I didn't have enough white in between, okay, the red and green, I'd have a little section that's kind of brownish because those colors don't mix well together. But you'll see it just takes a little bit of white to divide it. It's not going to be the end of the world. And in this case, these colors look fine together. I wouldn't want to blend them, but they look fine side by side, and that's plenty enough precision for a 3-part blend. So don't ever sweat that, think that, it's this giant headache, because it just doesn't have to be. So we're squeezing that together, gonna get those pieces to kind of stick a little bit. And I'm going to trim it up, and we'll put it through, and I will see if you like it. Blend wise, try everything. Really, just take little pieces, little 2-inch pieces, 1-inch pieces, doesn't matter, and make some wild blends for yourself, because I honestly think you're going to love it. And it's very freeing to realize it doesn't have to be, like on a mathematical chart anywhere. Okay? So we're going to want to use this in a kind of a different way than you've seen. I've made myself a long strip like we did that other time. Only I'm going to cut this apart, and I'm going to stack it in kind of, well, in the order that it is already. So I'm cutting it there where the blue and the pink meet, and I'm adding a little bit more pink to the stack, and another sheet of white. Okay, just push the air out of those white sheets because they're stinkers, and they will try to stick a little bit. And they're number 6 sheets, so you know they're particularly fussy and hard to handle, but it'll be all right. So stack that up like this. No, it's gonna turn that over. There you go, like this. Whatever your colors are, however it looks pretty to you. I would love to see this in golds and greens. You know, your palette is a very personal thing. I'm going to put a white top on this, and then I'm going to make some impressions in it. And this is one of the easiest ways to make a really interesting design component. And there's just nothing hard about it. And make sure that it's stuck together before I start messing with it, because I don't know about you, but you know, and you can stick a rod in there and lift it up and lift the whole sheet up. Makes you feel real sharp. Okay, so I'm going to trim that. In real life I wouldn't trim these half as much, but I want you to be able to see what's going on. Okay, so I'm going to lay this here, and I'm going to make some indentations, and they're really pretty deliberate. You can see how it's laid out on the graph. Got a center, I got one off to the side, I got one off to the other side. And this thing's not going to stay in one piece for a very long time, but I've got it marked out the way I need it to be to use it. And in the final design it really makes a nice kind of scalloped effect. One thing I did not want to do would be to have to put snakes down in that, because I didn't want it spotty. And that's why I'm going to take my square pears. People love these things. I gotta tell you, I kind of invented them by accident. But they're really good for something like this. And you can actually make an over-reduced cane, you know, you can compress it and make it fat again, so they have uses. But that's what I'm doing with it today, is I'm just bringing it back together, making that scallopy look without having to put any fill in there. Okay, so now we're just going to add a little bit to this. We're going to make our striped component that's really different from the other one, and that's that same material that you made a long time ago. It's just laid out on the magenta. Doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, it's going to be all over the place, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. Just do your cuts the best you can and put a magenta top on it, or whatever your colors are. That could be black, it would be beautiful, black, gray, red. Anyway, it makes a really neat design element, and it'll really finish off this project really well. So right now I'm going to make a groove in here, because we're going to get ready to start putting things together a little bit more. And I'm going to just kind of rock a larger rod in there and make another side to that triangular indentation. So you know, we've got one on the other side with that blue triangle in it, and this is just a one on the other side, and we'll be able to put our first component in there. And we'll start really seeing how it's going to look, how our cane's going to look. Obviously, you see any bubbles, you got to pop them. That's going to take a really nice piece inside of it to make it fit together better with the rest of the cane. And I'm kind of being really aware of the direction that I'm going right now with pushing it and with keeping everything straight, because we're not going to have very many more opportunities to, you know, give any precision to this cane. So my design element's going to go in there, That's what we built it for. That's off a little bit there, see? So you want to try to make it as straight as you can. And that's just the way we want it, and we're going to add these pieces that we made a minute ago. And I'm going to put those on the sides. And you know, pieces like this, that could have gone on the bottom, okay? You could have stacked them up. You know, don't feel at all constrained by anything that, you know, I'm doing in this one particular cane. Just make all the pieces you want to, put them together different ways, okay? I'm bending that inward. Okay, it's making kind of a round shape, and I had considered keeping that nice round shape, but it was just too time consuming and difficult for this video. So once we get this built the way we want it, we're going to square it up. And that's what I've done. I just put caps on it. You see those pieces in the bottom there with the holes in them? I started reducing it and squaring it up without any caps on it. So those have both got holes in them where it started to suck in. Anyway, I put these caps on it, and they create a suction that keeps it from caving in. That's what they're for. Yeah, that's what you don't want, is holes in the end. So it's this long now, plenty long enough. It's going to really be a nice big 2-inch cane. And when it's reduced, you have tons of it left. I still have plenty of it left. I'm going to cut it right down the middle, see if it's going to line up and look good. And I like it, it's fine. And we're going to make one more element, and you'll see where we're going to need this. Now this, you know, you're probably going, oh my God, just put it together. Do not make any more elements. Oh, look at that. You like my hand? I smashed it in a door the 2 days I was making this. So that's attractive. But anyway, so you got this one. And all it is the other half of that original turquoise jelly roll. And here's the other half of that purple piece, okay? So yeah, okay, I put some white on it. But I think you're going to like it like that. I want to make sure I'm kind of keeping consistent with the way that I'm using the white. But you know, you don't have to fiddle with all this. You know, you could just, you know, you could just take what you already had and put it together. I just want to show you something. Okay, so that's that purple one. It looks blue in this light because there's too much sun coming in. But anyway, that's the purple Skinner blend triangle that's been laying there this whole time. It was the other half of the one that we started using. Okay, and the reason I'm leaning on it like that is, see, I'm making a bend in it, okay? So I want it to have an arch shape to it. I don't know, I was just thinking about that. I hadn't really planned to put that in there, but it just needed to go in there, and I thought, well, I may as well show you. I may as well take the time to put it in there. So when you get done with it, it looks like this. But you will see, when you look at the cane, that although the color is going to be nice, and it's going to be really pretty, we need to bring the pink back in, and there's things that we need to do, plus the scale's all wrong. It's way too big. And that's actually wasn't accidental, because I want to double it up, and I want to quadruple it up, actually. So I'm going to take it and reduce it. I'm going to do it the same way that we always do, you know, keeping my line straight, putting it together. And see, now we've got some, you know, motifs that kind of echo the other parts, you know, like the wavy, scallopy parts and stuff. I don't know, I just thought it needed something, and it's, you know, to go with this. So I'm going to dress it up a little bit. I know, don't kill me. I'm going to dress it up a little bit. I'm going to bring my pink back in and you know, really make it look like, you know, I put more thought into this one piece than I did. It just needed a certain piece. So I'm going to make a little channel here in the top, and I'm going to wrap that blue around the bottom a little bit. And you know, don't worry about doing this exact thing. Just know that you can do this. You know, it's fun. You could make a cane just like that one I'm holding and just let that be the cane. I mean, you know, this isn't supposed to be torturous, but, you know, I figured I'd let it rip. You know, if you want to see it, you know, okay. So I took a couple cane benders, because, you know, I got a lot of them. And I'm putting them in the sides because I want a a certain kind of curled effect. And you know, I'm just tripping now, I can't help it. And I'm going to pull that in and form a triangle with it. And you're going to see it was worth it, because this piece is going to be a lot more interesting than it would have if I had left it out. Isn't that cool? You know, I just wanted it. So now I'm bringing those sides in. I'm going to get it a little more crisp so that I can use it the way I want to, and so there aren't any, you know, more areas that need fill. So I just smooth it up into that nice triangle. Same way we always do. I'm looking at my size now because we're kind of closing in on this. I'm not going to be running out of material right now. And see, it's much better. I just think it's much better. Kind of cut it in half. You know, but bam, it's much better. So now we've got something pretty to kind of, I don't know, just kind of finish it off with. So I've got my stripey thing. I got all this stuff, you know. I mean, shoot, we're practically home free, right? Gonna have my cane bender again, and I'm gonna torture that completed cane a little bit. And you know, that's the very, very definition of Pandorification. I taught a class once, and the lady said, I took your whole class, I still don't know what the hell, you know, Pandorification is. Well, that's when you take a really good cane that you think is done and you start to torture it a little bit. So you can see those stripes through there, so I know where I'm at. But you know, these are the moments where you know, you let the freak off the leash. This is when you enjoy yourself more, and you know, I want to have fun. I want you to have fun. So I'm going to take that insane looking stripey thing. I'm going to drop it in that bent area. I'm just going to be glad that I did, because it's just really going to add a lot to this cane, and it's going to create a place for that element that I just had to have. And you're going to love it. It's going to be great. Okay, so you can drop that in. See, it's much better now. It's much better now. And I'm going to bend down the sides and just make sure they end up in, you know, some kind of place that makes a little bit of sense. We kind of lucked out here because they do fit, and I just had to trim off a little bit on the bottom there. So there it is. Now I'm going to form this into a really, really, you know, straight edge triangle, because obviously we've got to kaleidoscope it. We can't have any gaps in it. There you go. So now it's really, really triangular. And I'd like to say I'm going to reduce it and just, you know, make a kaleidoscope just like that, but you know, you can't. Okay, so there's something that you need to do to this before you can even think about reducing it. Otherwise, you're going to completely ruin it. That is, you got to cap it. I don't make triangular caps because I got prototypes of them and they were so sharp I thought I was going to tear my hands open. So I make triangular caps out of clay. Okay, so no, they're not transparent, they're not as fun as the clear ones. But for a triangle, rather than, you know, having to be super careful, just make them out of clay. Leave it for 24 hours. I'm sorry, but just leave it for 12 hours. I mean 12 hours, that's fine. Oh, that sound is a rainstorm. It's pouring outside. Okay, so now we're going to reduce this, and we're going to reduce it like this. It took exactly 1 hour to reduce this. Obviously, I wouldn't torture you with that, but that's what you're doing. You're pinching, you're pulling, you're keeping your lines straight, and you're taking your time. Put on your music, you know, just forget about everything. Just relax. Don't think of this as something that's like a chore. I like doing it. See, now when it's bigger, that was about 20 minutes in. And it's really a big milestone in that you can grab it and you can do that pulley thing and you can do that twisty thing. And keep checking your lines on that one side where you really got them, you know, visible. That side on the front there. And just make sure nothing's going, you know, too far off the map, okay? Pinch it. You still got your lines, your grid there, you know, you've got your graph paper or whatever you're working on, which I do highly recommend. And, you know, you're seeing that it's not going too far off. It's got to be equilateral, you know that, or it's never going to fit together right. See how that's sucking in? Just be happy that it's not your real cane sucking in, right? And that's just, that's just devastating. It's happened to everybody. It happened to me a bazillion times. Only slight exaggeration, it happened a lot. So you can trim off those edges if you want to, the ones that are sucking in. And when you do so, you will see that you'll find a flat edge pretty quickly, and it's really clean and nice, and it's not tearing up your cane. That waiting period, I may have exaggerated, maybe not 24 hours, but just make sure those caps are really on there. See how I can just cut that off? And how the sucked in part isn't even a factor. It's really nice right there. It's nice and flat. And that sucked in part, forget about that, just take it off. So it's working, right? It's really not dragging too much of the cane with it, just a little bit. See? So, after all the work that you've put in, I don't see why, you wouldn't want to just take your scrap and make some caps. I just make a flat sheet, and put it on the ends. So now it's pretty big. I wanted it 12 inches. It's 12 inches. I have a little drag on that one side, but it's not going to affect anything because there's so much going on in that cane. It doesn't have to have like every inch perfect. And my lines are straight and I like it. I'm laying it out here, making sure that it's, all the sides are the same. And I'm going to get ready to cut it into 6 2-inch pieces and make my kaleidoscope. I'll be sure and publish pictures of the pieces that I've made out of this. But you see how all that stuff in there, we kind of needed it. I don't know, I think we did. So the colors are, are all represented, and we're putting it back into a kaleidoscope, and there it is. It's done. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. Don't worry about doing everything you saw. Do one thing you saw. Be happy with it. Try it again. I hope you love it, and thank you so much for coming. See you next time. Bye-bye.